Chaplain Dillard initiates creating and posting these videos. Their contents and YouTube's linked videos do not necessarily reflect specific beliefs, practices, requirements, or endorsements of the Department of Defense, its subordinate organizations, or other groups with which Chaplain Dillard is affiliated.
Welcome back. This is the last in our short series on the speaker-listener technique. And again, if you haven't seen at least the first video, preferably the first two, I encourage you to watch those. This concept of a communication technique is cumulative, and it will be very helpful for you to watch them in sequence. Again, this is not the way to solve a problem, but this is a very good way to discern the problem. And we cannot move toward problem solution until we have an accurate understanding of what the actual problem is, which is going to require some structure in conversation. Some review of the rules of the speaker: to be brief, to speak for ourselves, to stay on topic, and rules of the listener, to paraphrase, to give them opportunity to clarify. And today we want to cover some rules for both, because once you or I are the speaker, then we become the listener later. Once we feel like the other person understands our basic first point, not everything about the problem, but a piece of our concern, then we want to give them a chance to share the floor. And so there are rules for both. And I've already implied one of the first ones, and that is that the speaker has the floor. That can be physically holding that card. Again, you're probably not going to be holding the card as a physical cue to the other person that you are the speaker and you have this floor that's colored like a tile floor, double entendre there. But you should and probably will need to say, "Excuse me, I'm talking now and I'd just like a few minutes, and then I want to hear what you have to say." That's still letting them know, this is my time to speak my concerns. And if you can do it in a calm voice, if you can do it speaking slowly, speaking for yourself: "I want, I believe, I think, I wish, I understood this to be the case," and just to give them a chance to hear those concerns, to paraphrase back to you. When you have the floor for just a few minutes, then you can give that floor to them later. But it's important that you take the floor, that you speak for yourself, that you're not overly timid, but that you're not overly demanding either, that you speak for a fairly short period of time. Why is this important? Well, first of all, when either person is upset, we are prone to dominate. And there are different ways that we can dominate. We can get passive aggressive and say nothing, and that is really a way to dominate the conversation, because if it's supposed to be a conversation, we're not willing to participate, we've just demonstrated power. But that's not helpful to solving problems. Certainly not helpful to discerning what the problem is. And of course, in more overt ways, we can dominate by just having a billion words, raising our voice, being very animated in our gestures, being accusatory. Those things are not helpful either. So to use the floor in the sense of using the instructions on the piece of paper, which I encourage you to commit to memory in concept at least, and to stand your ground and speak, to voice those and not be too timid, can be very, very helpful, because otherwise it's going to become a battle of who can get their point out with in the most convincing way, or overpower the other one with an amount of words or a level of emotion. Using these techniques can be very helpful. We need the structure so that we don't dominate in unhelpful ways. Second, a physical prop or prompt can encourage structure. There's nothing wrong with printing this out, shrinking it up in a wallet-size piece of paper, putting it in your wallet and say, "I really want us to get to the bottom of what's bothering us. And I heard about this technique, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it's helpful to me. And I'm going to set it here on the table to kind of guide my comments, so I'm respectful to you, so that I can try to communicate what is concerning to me, and then I want to hear what's concerning to you." And that physical prompt can be very helpful to that sense of structure. Thirdly, when either of us is upset, it helps to see the technique and the rules. Here I am kind of recommending that you print this out and use it sometimes. It's not required, it's not absolutely necessary, but it can be helpful, because when you get scared or you get mad or you get depressed because this relationship is important to you, we can get the brain lock and we forget some basics like keep it short and speak for yourself and give them a chance to paraphrase, pause and ask them what they heard. And just seeing this on summarized very simply can help you remember that when you've got the brain lock. Also, having a prompt that the other person lacks can remind us to share. If even if I don't have the card in my hand, if I reach in my pocket and I grab my keys just as a reminder, and you can say to the other person, I want to remind myself by using a prompt that, what I say right now is the key to your understanding me. But in just 30, 45 seconds, I want to give you the keys as a kind of a prompt that this is your time to speak. I want to hear what you have to say, and what you will say is the key to my understanding of your concern. That might sound a little corny, but something in your hand that the other person doesn't have yet can remind you need to give it up. You need to give them a time to speak and not hold on to the floor or the keys all the time. And lastly, on this point, reading from the prompt can model that it's okay for them to read too. Again, here I am recommending that you print it out, and if they see that it's helpful, whether this is in your marriage and you put this on your refrigerator, if this is with a really close friend you talk to a lot and you have this in your wallet, if it's posted on a cabinet in your office, that physical prompt, if you turn to it occasionally and refer to it, it will let them know over time it's okay for you to do it too, that you're humbling yourself for them to do it too, that you're humbling yourself to refer to a basic structure of communication, because sometimes we do get the brain lock or our heart gets heated and we don't think as clearly as we'd like to. On the second point for both, that speakers should keep the floor while the listener paraphrases, that we don't give it up until the other person can demonstrate that they truly understand what we're trying to say. Not everything, but the first piece of it. If you give it up too soon, then you're more likely to get off track. Well, let's look at some other reasons why that's important. Holding the floor physically and waiting can remind them that they need to paraphrase. If you're using this card or some other prompt, and you've agreed that you're going to use this prompt or this prop as a reminder, still having in your hand lets them know you're waiting for them to give back what they think they heard you say, so you can clarify or confirm and then move on. Secondly, holding the floor communicates, I still have more to say. It's not necessarily that you say one thing and then you give them the floor and they say one thing, that you speak until you are understood to your satisfaction by the other person. Again, not everything that you want to say, but the first piece of it. And that might take you 2 or 3 or 4 times to express that. Thirdly, taking our time, not stalling for time, but slowing down, taking our time, models the same thing for them. That if we hold onto the floor and we don't rush it, slowing things down can usually cool some of the heat of the moment, and it models for them to do the same, to slow down, to cool the heat of the moment so the conversation goes better. The next rule for both is to share the floor. Why is that important? Because sharing the floor proves that we don't want to lecture them. A lot of times when we're in what could have been an argument, the other person might think that we do want to lecture them. But if we share it, we're proving that we don't. We are proving that we want to dialogue, to communicate, and really hear the other person. Sharing the floor also proves that we're willing to listen to them. Not just that we want to talk, but we want to hear what they have to say. Thirdly, this builds respect and eases the heat of the moment. Oftentimes in what could have been an argument, if we don't have some type of structure, what most often happens is the heat of the argument builds and builds and builds until one person leaves. Only with some structure and some practice and self-discipline can we bring that heat down and demonstrate respect and trust so that we want to talk. That's the only way to over time, to get this to go better than just lecturing each other or yelling at each other. And lastly, sharing the floor back and forth cues structure for speaking. There has to be structure. We love structure. That's why we like sporting events. That's why we like board games. That's why we like music. All of those things are examples of very complex movements, sometimes tensions that are relieved, but they're able to be accomplished because of structure. That doesn't naturally happen in a conversation with somebody that is upset with us or with whom we are upset, unless we're deliberate about it. And the speaker-listener technique offers several practical rules. You can print them out or not print them out. I recommend that you do post them somewhere, have them in your wallet, but at least commit the principles to memory and model them with others. Even if the other person never does it, what you do can lessen the heat of the moment, so you're more able to communicate your concern. You're more able to hear their concern, because again, we cannot move to problem solution until we've had a good and accurate problem discussion. What is the nature of the problem? Then we'll know how to address it. But we can't put the cart before the horse. Hope this has been helpful to you. Tune in next week and we will start a new series, and I hope to see you then.
At the release date of this video, I am stationed with Research, Development, and Engineering Command, RDECOM, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Because the majority of our personnel are in this area, I spend most of my time here. I do, however, travel to our distant units based on command priorities and budget. I place these videos on YouTube for broad visibility to Army personnel and their families, but I hope the videos will be helpful to others too. If you are assigned to RDECOM and want to request specific topics by video, training on site or by VTC, or confidential counseling on site or by secure webcam, you can contact me at jeffrey.d.dillard.mil@mail.mil.